guys, welcome back to my channel. So it is the final day of Makeup Collection and Declutter Week 2020. We are going to be going through all of my eyeshadow palettes. I am both incredibly excited and incredibly terrified for today's video. When I'm filming this intro, I actually haven't filmed the declutter portion of this video yet. It's the only one that I have left to do, and honestly guys, I don't know how it's gonna go. I'm not an eyeshadow palette hoarder. I don't have an absolutely insane collection, but I know I don't need to keep everything. So I will show it all to you in my traditional fashion. We'll swatch a whole bunch of stuff, and then hopefully we'll be able to pare things down a little bit. Now, if you are just seeing this series now and you missed the previous 4 videos that I did this week, I will link the playlist for you guys up here in the cards in case you'd like to check it out. And yeah, without me rambling on any further, I'm sure you are excited to get to the makeup, so let's go look at some eyeshadow palettes. Alright guys, so we've got a lot of palettes to go through. I think I'm going to basically do things by brand, so I'll show you all of the palettes I have from Colorpop and from ABH and from Juvia's Place, etc., because I think that'll just be the fastest way to do this. So the first palette that is a total staple in my collection, anybody that watches videos here on my channel regularly knows how much I love this guy. This is the Huda Beauty New Nude palette. I've had this in my collection for probably just over a year now, and I absolutely love it. These tones are very me. I find these shadows to be very nice to work with. The mattes are pigmented. They're very smooth. They're a little dry to the touch, but they do blend out really, really nicely on the eyes. And then the metallic foiled shades in here are super impactful and have a really gorgeous sparkle to them. So this is a palette that definitely has a home in my collection. Moving on, I have 2 palettes from ABH, Soft Glam and the Jackie Aina palette. Both of these I absolutely love. I think they are great palettes. Soft Glam is a classic. I don't do makeup on other people professionally, but I have done makeup for my friends for their weddings, and I've used this palette on multiple brides because I think it's just the perfect thing when you're looking for like a timeless, elegant makeup look. So this is something I definitely enjoy having in my collection. And then the Jackie Aina palette I have been loving for the last like 6 months or so. Basically, ever since I picked it up, I think this is such a stunning color story. I love the balance of neutrals and colorful shades, mattes and shimmers in here. You can do so many things with this palette. This was my favorite of 2019 just because I think this is an outstanding palette, both color story wise and formula wise. I've got 3 palettes from Persona Cosmetics. I think their eyeshadow formula is excellent. Definitely underrated. If you've never tried it, I would highly recommend it. So I have the original Identity 1 palette, which is a very neutral palette. This is really great for like everyday quick and easy looks. The mattes in here are super pigmented and smooth. The metallics are just like so ultra buttery and pigmented. It's just a really, really beautiful shadow formula to work with, and they pick up really nicely with a brush if you don't like using your fingers. This is one, honestly, now that I am working full-time again, I feel like I should keep on hand because this would be like perfect for everyday looks. So I'm definitely keeping this. And then this palette launched this summer. This is Identity 2. The quality of these shadows is absolutely excellent. Again, these metallic shades pick up so nicely with a brush, and the mattes in here, again, are super, super pigmented and smooth. This color story overall, I'm not as big of a fan of as the original or as some other palettes that I have in my collection. I really like the jewel tones in here. I think they're really nice, and you can make some really fun looks with this, but I think just color story wise, this is something I reach for less than the original Identity palette, but if you like these shades, the formula is excellent. And then this little guy right here is the Copper Color Theory Kit palette. So this is something you actually buy as part of a set that comes with a brush and an eyeliner, both of which are absolutely fantastic. I would totally recommend the Color Theory kits, especially the copper one. These shadows, again, beautiful. I love all these shades. It's a very nice little kind of cohesive neutral color story with a little pop of rusty orangey red in there. I have used this palette so many times. This light brown shade is like the best crease transition color on my skin tone. I absolutely love it. So this is something, again, 100% I'm going to keep. And I'm going to keep the Identity 2 as well, even though I reach for it a little bit less, just because I think the shades are nice and the formula so good. Something I am going to be getting rid of, though, that should come as no surprise to anybody that's been watching my videos over the last couple of months, is this Pedal to the Metal palette from The Balm. This is a cream eyeshadow palette, and I did not like these very much at all. I found them to be very patchy and very oily. Like, the glitter that's in here is fun, but just the way that these swatch is just very uneven and sheer and really just not that great. So I just think the quality of this, it's not very good, so I don't feel any need to keep this in my collection. Then I have two palettes from Dose of Colors. I think Dose of Colors has a very nice eyeshadow formula. This palette here is the Friendcation palette that they did in collaboration with Desi and Katie, and I absolutely love this. I've talked about this numerous times on my channel. There are some really fun, very glittery foiled shades in here, and then some beautiful, very like neutral, easy to work with mattes. I know that some people with very fair skin have complained about some of these shades being a little bit difficult to work with. I personally have not had that issue, but I am also not like the palest of pale. But then this little palette right here, I think these are very nice shadows, but I don't know that I need to keep this. This is the Marvelous Mauves palette. So you have 5 different shades of mauve tones in here. Obviously, you're a little bit limited with a palette that's completely matte and also that's monochromatic. So this is something that I would probably reach for in conjunction with other palettes, or, you know, once in a while if I was going for an all matte look, I could reach for this. I just don't know realistically how often I'm going to use this palette when I know I have so many other eyeshadows on hand, and since I've only used it a handful of times, I feel like it would be nice to pass it along to somebody else. So even though I do think this is pretty and I have no complaints about the formula itself, I think I probably should just declutter this guy. Next, let's talk about these palettes from Alter Ego. All 3 of these were sent to me from the brand. I also did at one point have their Daydream palette, which was also gifted to me, but I did declutter that one earlier in 2019. Now, Alter Ego is one of those dupe brands, and they dupe very high-end palettes. In fact, I think all 3 of these are dupes for Natasha Denona palettes. So you have the Goddess palette, which I believe is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Gold palette. Then you have Sahara, which I believe is a dupe for the Biba palette, and then the newest one they launched is Aurora, which is a dupe for the Sunrise palette. Now, honestly, I do think the formula of these shadows is very decent. Let's just like swatch a couple. They feel very soft to the touch. They have a decent amount of pigmentation. I mean, this is a yellow. It's a little difficult to do. Let's like swatch the orange one. Yeah, they're not like insanely pigmented, but I find that they build up pretty nicely on the eyes. I haven't had too many complaints when using these, especially for the price point that these retail for. Each of these palettes is $16, so I feel like if Natasha Denona is way out of your price range, but you really like the color stories of her palettes, this is a nice way to get to create similar looks on a budget. Next, I've got 3 palettes here from Milani. Now, I heard somewhere, I don't remember where, that these little gold palettes are going to be discontinued, or they're not making them anymore or something like that, which is a total shame because I love both of these so much. These were 2 of the original ones when they came out with this palette design. So I have Bold Obsessions, which is gorgeous, has a really nice mix of mattes and shimmers. And then I have Most Loved Mattes, which is an all matte palette, and this is full of neutrals. See, like this for me is definitely more usable than the Marvelous Mauves because I have those same kind of purpley mauve tones, but then also some neutral browns and some warm toned browns. So this is something that's like utilitarian in my collection. It's something that's really easy to reach for creating a number of different looks, or if I want to use a glittery eyeshadow single, I know I can reach in here and use this to create the rest of my look. So I really like both of these palettes. I like having them in my collection. Again, I feel like the quality of these shadows is really nice for something from the drugstore. This palette originally retailed for $19.99, or well, you could get both of these at Walmart for like $15, or you could get them on the Milani website for 20. But I just felt like the way that these built up and blended out on the eyes was really nice. And the metallics in here, they're a little chunky, but they are very, very shiny and pretty. I'm gonna make a mess. So I'm probably going to hold on to these two little palettes, especially if eventually you're not going to be able to get them anymore. But then this palette I picked up more recently, and I don't know how I feel about it. This is the Gilded Noir. So this is their newer eyeshadow formula, newer palette style. I think the colors in here are gorgeous. There's so many really fun shimmery shades. This blue is one of the best metallic blues I have in my entire collection. Oh my goodness. It is just like so shiny and beautiful on the eyes. But I kind of have a couple problems with this. First of all, there are only a couple of mattes in here, and the mattes that are in here aren't like the best. And then even though I like the metallics that are in here, I sort of feel like, I don't know, I just don't know how often I'm going to think to reach for this to create a look, because I feel like with the lack of mattes, I don't usually use this all by itself. Like I would need to use it in conjunction with something else or one of the other Milani palettes to get a look that I liked. So I just don't find myself reaching for this very often. So I feel like it's kind of going to waste in my collection. So even though I think there are some fun things you can do with this palette, and I don't think the shadows are bad, I just feel like it's something I really don't need to hold on to. I've had it long enough and haven't been reaching for it that I think it's a good sign I should give it to somebody else. Then next we have my Nabla palettes, which you guys know I'm definitely keeping all of these because I love these palettes and I talk about them all the time and I'm mildly obsessed with them. I have the Secret palette, which is just such a stunning collection of jewel toned shades and some nice anchoring mattes. Nabla's matte formula is just like out of this world amazing. It feels so creamy, so just like utterly silky. It's lovely. And then their metallics also are just like so nice. Like seriously, look at how beautiful those swatches are. I think they do fantastic things with eyeshadow. So I really, really enjoy this palette a lot. Then Soul Blooming, it's hard to say whether or not Soul Blooming or Dreamy 2 is my favorite. Probably Soul Blooming though. This is the palette I've had the longest. It was the very first thing I ever purchased from Nabla. And it's just one of my favorite makeup products, like in general. I love this shade Flowery. It's such a unique periwinkle purpley blue kind of matte shade. So stunning. I love wearing like very pink purpley fairy-like looks on my eyes, and this palette gives me all those vibes. So this is something I really, really love having in my collection. And then the Dreamy 2 palette is my most recent Nabla purchase. I love the packaging on this. Like, look at how pretty this is and reflective. Like, I feel like a lot of times it's hard to pick it up on camera, but right now you're really getting that rainbow effect. And this is just a really glitzy, glamorous palette. These shadows are all super dimensional and gorgeous. This shade Rem doesn't swatch the best, but if you layer it over a glitter primer, it's unreal. But some of these other metallic shades like Libertine and Amarcord here, oh my goodness, just like gorgeous, gorgeous, smooth, shiny shadows. Just like look at the reflect on those. You know, do you see what I mean? Like they aren't full of chunky glitter that's gonna like cut your eyes, but they have so many tiny little micro shimmers that catch the light in the most beautiful way. They are stunning. So this again is a palette that I really love having in my collection. This is like a night out on the town bachelorette party type of palette, you know? Something else that's kind of glitzy and fun is this Celestial Thunder palette from Dominique Cosmetics. This is basically like an edited down version of the Celestial Storm palette that she launched in 2019. This came in my BoxyCharm box. I think it was a BoxyCharm exclusive. And I have found myself really enjoying this little guy. It's the first time I've ever tried the Dominique Cosmetics eyeshadow formula, and I think these are really quite nice. The mattes are very, very pigmented. Like, look at that. That's insane. And these sparkly shades, they're almost more toppers. I feel like you need to foil them or layer them over a glitter primer for them to have their most intensity. But it doesn't always translate the best in a swatch. That one's not so bad. But yeah, I found myself really enjoying playing around with this. It's got me now eyeing the new Latte 2 palette, like even though that's a very neutral palette, because I enjoyed her formula, something about the color story I really like, so I've been thinking about maybe picking it up. So Either way, this is fun. I think these are some cool, unique tones. I enjoy the kind of celestial theme they've got going on, so this is something I am going to hold on to. Speaking of BoxyCharm, another palette that I received in a box was this guy. I actually got this in my December Boxy Luxe. I think this is the Storybook Cosmetics Little Briar Rose palette, and if you haven't ever seen one of Storybook Cosmetics palettes before, they are all made to look like little books, which I think is such a cool aesthetic. When I was growing up, I was such a bookworm. It makes me really sad that I don't read as much as I used to, because I do really enjoy books. So I just love all the detail and the aesthetic on this palette. Yes, it's super bulky, so storing it is not like the easiest thing. I have a bookshelf that I actually have been keeping it on, so it works in that respect. But I could see how this may not be something that everybody would love. And then this is what the shades look like in here. I think they're very, very pretty, very on theme for Sleeping Beauty. In the movie, you know, they make her a dress and they keep switching it back and forth between being pink and blue, so I feel like having pink and blue tones in this palette completely makes sense. I really enjoy having this palette, not only because I think the shadows themselves are actually pretty decent. I was pleasantly surprised by how soft these were and how nice it was to create looks using these shades. So this is something I would like to hold on to, both for nostalgia's sake and also as something that I think I will continue to use. It's a pretty new palette in my collection, so yeah, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to like run out and buy anything else from Storybook Cosmetics, because I don't feel the need to like collect all their palettes, but I am happy to have finally tried their formula and to have one of them on hand. Next up, we have my Juvia's Place palettes. So I currently only have 2 palettes from Juvia's Place in my collection. I have owned other ones in the past, but I have since decluttered them. So I have the original Magic palette, which is absolutely massive. Now you can get this only in a mini size, which honestly, you really probably don't need more than that. So don't feel bad if you missed out on this guy. But this is a really, really gorgeous take on like a rainbow palette. It's not exactly a rainbow, but you do have quite a few different colorful shades in here. Some really, really gorgeous metallics. This formula especially is just like ultra pigmented and really, really beautiful to apply to the eyes. So this is a palette, every time I open it, I think to myself, like, why am I not using this more? And then the other palette I have is the Douce palette, which just reminds me of like a French patisserie. Like these shades are just so yummy to me for whatever reason. And again, same Juvia's Place quality. The mattes in here are really, really smooth and pigmented, and then again, super foiled metallics. The thing with these palettes is that I don't necessarily ever use them by themselves to create looks. I like them paired with other palettes in my collection because I feel like their color stories by themselves are a little challenging for my brain. So I know I'm going to need to make a concerted effort in 2020 to put these out on my vanity and actually make myself use them, because I am intending on keeping both of these palettes and I think that they are really nice quality. It's such a waste that I haven't been reaching for them more. Next up, we have Too Faced. I have 3 palettes from them. I've never owned anything from the Chocolate Bar series, but I do have Sweet Peach, and then this past holiday season I picked up the new Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette, and then I also have the Natural Matte palette. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys because I didn't say anything in my other previous declutter videos because a lot of that footage had been filmed weeks and weeks ago. But I'm not super happy with what I've been hearing about Too Faced and things that have been going on in this community over the last week or so. So I'm definitely still up in the air about how I want to handle talking about their products here on my channel moving forward with kind of the vibes that they've been giving off. However, I'm also not the kind of person that would throw away perfectly good makeup and create waste just because I disagree with a brand's actions. So I am not planning on decluttering these palettes for that specific reason. I am probably going to get rid of my Sweet Peach palette just because it's old. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, even though I do really like the shades in here and I've really enjoyed having this palette over the years. I feel like we've reached a point in time where this is definitely like, it's gotta be at least 3 to 4 years old. And knowing that I have so much other eyeshadow that's newer, I'd hate to like not use those palettes for the sake of trying to make myself use this when like I know I'm never going to hit pan on any of these shades. So even though I love this palette so much when it initially launched, and I don't think that if you were to buy this now that the shadows would be bad, I think it might just be time that I move along from Sweet Peach and try to focus on some other things in my collection. I will, however, keep the extra spicy palette. As I said, this is something I picked up more recently, and I have been really enjoying these shades that are in here. They're not like the most exciting, but they are a little bit more saturated than the ones in the Sweet Peach palette. So if I'm looking for a warm and spicy look, this is something that I know I can easily reach for. And then the natural matte palette, I actually do find myself using a lot more than I anticipated that I would. This was something that was gifted to me from the brand when this repackaging first launched. And even though this is just an entirely matte palette, all these shadows are really nice to work with. They're not the most pigmented, but they build nicely and they blend out really nicely. So again, when I want like a fast and easy quick look, when I want to use something shimmery and I need some mattes, this is something that I know I can reach for and kind of depend on. Then next we have palettes here from the Beauty Crop. I have a lot of palettes from the Beauty Crop. I am an affiliate with them and I did purchase these, but I was able to get a discount as an affiliate, which is why I've ended up with like so many of their palettes. Honestly though, they're not like insanely expensive if you were to buy them full price. I think each one of these retails for $25.50, but the Beauty Crop has sales all the time, so you can easily get these for a lot less. And these are all 12 pan palettes that are colorful. They have some pressed glitters in them. They have mattes and metallics. And in general, I feel like their eyeshadow formula is pretty underrated. It's very, very solid in my opinion. The mattes are really easy to work with. The metallics are very, very creamy, kind of very similar to like the formula of Juvia's Place, actually. And even though I don't find myself reaching for these palettes as much as I would like to, I like having them in my collection because I know so few other beauty YouTubers ever talk about the Beauty Crop. They are nice to have on hand in case people want to see tutorials or they want to see swatch comparisons. So I think I'm probably just going to hold on to all of these. Let me show you quickly what I have. So first we have the Dawn Gazing palette, which is a nice collection of kind of more warm berry tones. This reminds me a lot of Naked Cherry. So if you liked that color story but didn't want to spend $50, this is a nice alternative to that. Then there's Sun Gazing, which is more of a warm toned neutral palette that has some pressed glitters in it. And then there's Stargazing here, which is more kind of like pastel and colorful. This one has much more spacey celestial vibes to it, but is very unique and a lot of fun. And then I also have their Cocktail palette vault. So those first three palettes were obviously part of their Gazing collection. And then this summer they launched these cocktail themed palettes. So I have Strawberry Daiquiri, which is more of a reddish pink palette. I have Pina Colada, which is more of a rainbow palette. That one's kind of fun. Sangria is more of a purple toned monochromatic palette. And then Mojito is a green palette. So yeah, again, I am going to keep all of these palettes. If any of them are like speaking to you, if you thought any of those color stories were really interesting and you'd like to see me use them in a look or do some tutorials, leave a comment and let me know. Next, I've got two palettes from Folklore Cosmetics. These actually ended up really surprising me. The brand sent these over to me and asked if I wanted to test out some of their stuff. A lot of it ended up being better than I thought, and these eyeshadow palettes probably were the biggest surprise of all. They're really quite nice, very, very smooth, very pigmented mattes, and some really, really buttery metallics in here. I think the shimmery shades in both of these palettes perform best when foiled or applied over a glitter primer, but you can get them to look like really, really quite nice on the eyes. So this is the Paris palette and this is the Perth palette. They have a bunch of other ones also in their travel series, but I really like both of these color stories. I think they're both really, really pretty and fun. So these are two palettes I like having in my collection. I like to use them a little bit more. Honestly, I haven't reached for them enough recently, but yeah, I think I'd like to hold on to these guys for a little while longer. Next, we have the LA Girl Hot Hot Heat palette. This launched over the summer last year, and LA Girl, is a really affordable drugstore brand, and this palette was like a little bit pricey for them, but honestly, I think the quality surprised a lot of us. These are really, really nice eyeshadows, and these colors are really fun. I haven't reached for this a ton lately because this to me is much more of a summer color story. It's not something that I use a lot in the fall and winter. So I don't know, I kind of want to hold on to this because I thought these were really, really good. And there are some beautiful shades in here. Can we talk about this turquoisey color? Oh my goodness, that's so stunning. It's very flaky, chunky. You definitely need to pat this one on top of a glitter glue, but when you do, man, it is so pretty on the eyes. So yeah, I don't know that this palette's necessarily gonna make it through the entirety of 2020. We'll see, come spring, summer, if I don't find myself reaching for this, I'll definitely pass it along to a friend. But knowing that the eyeshadow formula is good and that I did really enjoy it this past summer, I'd like to give it a little bit more time in my collection. Okay, so something that I think I might declutter, even though it kind of pains me a little bit, is this Iby Beauty Ocean Awakening palette. So this is something I got at Gen Beauty, and this is brand new. I haven't even swatched it yet. I just took it out of the box and then intended on using it and then never actually did. And I think this color story is really cool. I think there's some really beautiful shades in here. I don't know whether or not I will end up actually getting around to using this all that much, knowing that there are so much other eyeshadow in my collection. Let me know if you've tried their eyeshadow formula before and whether or not I should keep this and I should try it, because I don't want to swatch it, because if I am going to give it away, I'd rather give it away to someone brand new and pristine rather than stick my fingers in it. But if you guys can convince me to keep it and think that I should, then maybe I will. So yeah, let me know if you've tried this. Let me know what you think of it and whether or not I should keep it or pass it along. All right, we're getting closer to the end, so why don't we rapid fire through some of these one-off palettes that I have. First is the Tarte Make Believe in Yourself palette, which I actually thought I was gonna declutter last year, and then I ended up saving it from the declutter because this is a limited edition palette. You can't get it anymore, and I actually really like it. I really like the quality of the shadows. I think they're really pretty, and I actually did find myself reaching for this several times this year, so honestly, I feel like it's just one of those things I might as well just accept I'm gonna keep holding on to. I also ended up rescuing this Zoeva Cocoa Blend palette from my last declutter as well. I actually really did intend on getting rid of this. I even had it listed on my POSHMARK for a while, and then nobody bought it. And then I just got to this point where I was I don't know if I really feel comfortable selling it to somebody, because I didn't want to sell someone makeup that was more than 6 months old. So I just decided to readopt it back into my collection. And I'm not mad about it. This is a really nice neutral palette, and now Zoeva is carried at Ulta, so it's a little bit easier to get, so I kind of am actually happy that I ended up keeping it in my collection, because now if you guys want a review or swatch comparisons or something like that, I will have this guy on hand. Then I have this little Ciate Astrolights jeweled palette. I really, really like this. I think the shades are very, very pretty. I love the embossing in here. The quality of these shadows is very, very nice, and I love how petite it is and easy to travel with. The packaging is absolutely stunning. And just in case you're curious, it does say here on the back that this is made in Italy. Like I've said in my previous videos, I think that Ciate normally makes their makeup in Italy, and then just the products that they've made for subscription boxes, they've outsourced to China to make them more cheaply, which is very, very annoying. So this is really nice. I enjoy having this palette. I'm going to keep it in my collection, but I am kind of miffed at Ciate for what they've been doing recently. Then next there's this Jouer Skinny Dip palette. This is really beautiful, but it is very old. I've had it in my collection for years and years now. They don't make this anymore, and these are really gorgeous glittery eyeshadows. They look really, really pretty tapped all over the lid, and I enjoyed this a bunch when I first got it. But now that I have so many liquid glitters and eyeshadow singles, I feel like I just don't reach for this as much. So I don't know if I really should just keep holding on to it. I feel like it's kind of taking up a lot of space in my collection. This is a very big palette for it only having 6 shades. So yeah, even though I think this is really beautiful,
it might just be time. Then there's this palette from Pixie. This is the Eye Reflections palette in the shade Natural Beauty. Really, really nice, cool toned neutral palette. I actually really like this formula a lot. Pixie mattes are really soft and they have nice even pigment, but they're not like overly pigmented to the point where they are difficult to blend out. They kind of go on a little bit more sheer on the eyes and then you can really build them up. And then their metallics, again, are super buttery and shiny and pretty. So I actually really enjoy them a lot. I like this palette a lot. I have decluttered all of the other Pixie palettes that I've had over the years just because I wasn't reaching for them as much. But this one in particular, I know I do really like and use, so I'm going to keep it. Then I have the Carity Picante palette. This is a really fun, warm, fall-toned eyeshadow palette. I really didn't reach for this fall, which is a shame because I think these shadows are really nice. I kind of am on the fence about whether or not I want to keep this. I think I might hold on to it for a little bit longer, but if I don't find myself reaching for this in like the next 6 months, I think I should just declutter it and pass it along to somebody else so they can get some use out of it because it is a really nice palette. I just feel like we have seen so many warm toned eyeshadows lately that in a way it's made this palette kind of a little bit less exciting. I feel like it was more unique when it first launched. And then finally in this little stack is the Alomar Cosmetics Reina del Caribe Volume 1 palette. This is so tropical and so beautiful. I love this palette. I love the shadows in here. The formula is excellent. El Malecon, oh my god, the most gorgeous, unique goldish green shade. These mattes are ultra pigmented and buttery and smooth. I really like them a lot. So this is one that I do really enjoy having in my collection and definitely I'm gonna keep. And then of course there was Colorpop. You guys knew it had to be coming at some point, right? So I have 4 of their 12 pan palettes and then I have 2 of their little monochromatic 9 pan palettes. Both of these are like brand new to my collection. I just got them very recently, so these I'm definitely going to keep. Mint to Be is I think one of their newest palette launches. This one is really fun, obviously. It's a bunch of minty greens, and just as in true Colourpop fashion, they are crazy pigmented and really, really nice to work with. This is actually what's on my eyes right now in the intro of this video and the intros of all the videos from this week. I was wearing It's My Pleasure in the crease and then a shade from Mint to Be all over my lid, so if you were curious, this is what's on my eyes. But yeah, It's My Pleasure was something that I had been eyeing forever and ever and ever, and then it was available at Ulta and I had points, so I essentially got it for free, and I just think it's stunning. I'm really glad that I picked it up because I love purple eyeshadows, and this is basically a purple eyeshadow lover's little dream. And then the 12 pan palettes I have are Sweet Talk, California Love, Element of Surprise, and Bye Bye Birdie. So Element of Surprise is an old eyeshadow palette from Colourpop that they don't make anymore, but I actually really love this palette. I love this color story so much. I love the pop of purple and pink that's in here along with these really pretty neutrals. So even though this is older, like, I want to hold on to this palette because it still performs really nicely and I think the shades are gorgeous. And then Bye Bye Birdie is the newest 12 pan palette that I picked up, and obviously I couldn't resist a Birdie palette. If you guys don't know, my blog that I've had for the last 6 years is called Little Blushing Birdie, so I was like all about this, and again, purples. So I just thought this was super beautiful. The packaging on this is just like out of this world stunning, and these shades again super nice. So this is one I want to keep. To be honest, like, I'm gonna keep all my Colourpop palettes. I don't even want to keep saying it over and over again because I love Colourpop's eyeshadow formula. It's one of my favorites. So California Love is a more warm toned neutral palette. This one I really enjoyed during the summer and early fall months. I think you can create a really beautiful look with this. And then Sweet Talk. This may be my favorite of everything just because I love these peachy tones. I remember when this first launched, I hemmed and hawed over it for the longest time before I picked it up, and I'm so glad that I did because I love this palette and I've used it a whole bunch of times and I think it's just so pretty. All right, you guys, we're down to the final 2 palettes, and both of them are influencer collabs. We have the Makeup Revolution Emily Edit palette and the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. So here's the deal, guys. I've been deliberating over these 2 palettes for a while. I think both of them are very decent palettes. Like, if I had to be perfectly honest, I think the quality of the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette is better than the Emily Edit palette, but this is also like twice the cost, so I would hope that it had an even better formula. When it comes to the influencers themselves, like, I love Emily to death and I think she's fantastic. I have less than favorable feelings towards Jaclyn Hill, especially after she started launching her own brand and all the craziness that went down. So I've been very torn about what to do with these palettes. They're both very big, they have a lot of shades, they're both older palettes in my collection, and honestly, I'd never reach for either of these anymore. So I've been kind of going back and forth as to whether or not I want to keep them. I know they are palettes that are very popular, that a lot of people have, so they are the kinds of things that are requested very often, but I kind of also want to love all the makeup that I have on hand, and if I'm not using something, it seems silly to me to hold on to it. So I think I have come to the conclusion that I'm going to just declutter both of these palettes. I love Emily and I do want to support her, but again, I just don't find myself reaching for this palette. So if there's somebody else in my life that can use this, that will like it, like, I would rather them have it. And then the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, I just feel like at this point, there's so many other new and exciting things. Like, I kind of am just not interested in talking about this on my channel anymore. I've done plenty of looks with it. You can find palette bingos and whatnot with this palette here on my channel if you want some more inspiration and see some things I've done in the past. But honestly, I just kind of feel like I'm over it. I did get a lot of use out of this. I am not mad that I bought it, but I just think it's finally time. All right, you guys, so this is it. This is my entire eyeshadow palette collection post declutter. I counted and I have 43 palettes, which is not an insignificant amount. I think I have more palettes now than I did when I decluttered last year, but not significantly more. We're still keeping it under 50, which I am pretty happy about. And then this is what I'm decluttering, which is a grand total of only 8 eyeshadow palettes. Like, I know it's not a lot. Like I said, I told you guys I wasn't planning on doing a ton of decluttering because I'm really pretty happy with the eyeshadow palettes that I have. So even though it may not be the most satisfying declutter, I'm still pretty pleased with my overall collection. Alright guys, so that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for hanging out with me all week. If you've been watching along through this entire series, thank you guys so much always for your support. I appreciate it so much, for all of your views and your comments, and every time you thumbs up one of my videos. It means so much to me. And if you just discovered my channel through this series, I hope you will consider subscribing and coming back and hanging out with me again in the future. I try to upload like 2 to 3 times a week. I just recently went back to a full-time job and now I commute 40 minutes each way, so my time is significantly more limited than it was like 2 months ago. However, I'm still really dedicated to making awesome beauty content for you guys here on my channel, so I hope you will stick around and hang out with me again in the future. On that note, I think it's time for me to let you guys go, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.